approved this. It was brought to you 2-3 years ago. We have a sign off on it by the board. It's already been approved by resolution. It's just never got incorporated into the manual on doing it. The other major one,
EPCWID also approved.
EPCWID also approved, so there won't be any resolution on that one. Each of these, the operating agreement and the manual require that there be a technical summary prepared on the changes to justify why we're doing it, so we don't just change the, so everybody understands why. And so that one, we did that, I brought that to you, we approved it, we implemented it. It just never hasn't got put into the manual, so this is sort of a formality. The second one is Wasteway 18, which was last year, right?
Right.
You guys remember that controversy? I know that Maria remembers it very well. That was where the EPCWID wanted to put a set of lift pumps in the Hass Valley off the Ray Canal system to lift from the river to one of their lower canals because of the long travel time and capacity issues from the Purchase Dam. And so it didn't change their allocation, it didn't change anything that impacted us, it just provided one more point on the river the water could be diverted from. And so to have that, as you guys can understand why, you just can't start diverting water from the river any place without approval of both boards and reclamation on doing that. I think the controversy got into it is that reclamation didn't, for various reasons, and I guess yesterday it sort of indicated like they still didn't understand it very well, but I think Phil Clare and Gary got them cleared up a little bit. That it didn't get approved by reclamation, it got approved by the two districts, but now it's been approved, and since by reclamation.
Was the state engineer somehow involved?
Yeah, there was a lawsuit, EPCWID filed a mandamus, I think it was a mandamus.
Yeah, the Mexico State engineers tried to assert jurisdiction over that, saying that a permit was required from the state, and the long-standing position of both districts and the United States, at least historically, has been that within the project, New Mexico State engineer permits are not required, and it took a bit.
The Bureau was going for it for a while.
The Bureau changed their position.
Yeah. They were on board and then remember
about 6 times.
Brick
yeah.
Reeves from Salt Lake City got involved, and he was protested it, and then we talked to him up at the compact meeting, and then explained it to him, and then he got on board with it there.
And ultimately the state engineer backed off. But it did require EPCWID filing a lawsuit and, our district.
But you don't want to start that precedent.
No, and so
exactly.
It's a huge, I'm just being sarcastic, but the change to the manual was right, it's up on the screen right now, it was adding the abbreviation WW18 to that line on 4.52I. So a total of 6 characters, so 4 characters in a space. That's it. That's all the modification was about. But I think EPCWID spent $50,000 on the litigation. We spent quite a bit. It was a pretty dumb issue in my opinion. Anyways, we didn't have a problem with it. And, we've been looking at ourselves at doing something similar to Wasteway 32. I went and looked at the pumps up here and the design, and it's a good design and everything. The reason, though, that I don't think it'll work in our location is that they don't have any trash or sediment up there. There's a little bit of trash occasionally, but it's, and I guess Pete can vouch that we have the opposite condition down here, right? Half our water is sediment and the rest is trash.
Every once in a while it's wet.
Every once in a while, right. So the pumps work really well, and I can just tell you if we picked it up, it's a good design. I'm not saying that, our location, and it's an economical design, and I'm just jealous because I'd love to pick that design up and just put it in a little bigger form down at 32, but it won't work. So we're still going to have to work on figuring out how we can pump so much, it's going to probably take some sort of automatic trash rake to clean the device to keep it, and they have to do that in California a lot. I mean, there's a lot of river pumps in California, and so we'll look at some of those designs. But I didn't mean to distract. That was the only change for that big issue of last year that got delayed till now to May. The other one, the rest of them were requests by reclamation to change things in the manual. It wasn't by you know that last year they had sent this huge request to change basically every paragraph. And we rejected that, and we wouldn't even entertain a meeting on it or a discussion of it. Just didn't follow protocol. So this year they came back with some fairly minor changes that had to do with, I guess, issues, almost ministerial issues in my opinion. They had to do with dates that things were due by. We had a lot of dates. We were optimistic that people would turn in reports by January 15th.
Longer dates, I'm sure.
Yeah, longer, yeah,
Longer
and
period.
people weren't turning them in by the 15th, they were turning them in, sometimes by the 15th, sometimes a month or two late, so we just changed that to March 15th on several dates. If you really think about this, and I think Phil pointed it out, and even Reclamation agreed, that as long as all three parties agree that something's gonna be in late, there's no issue about compliance. It's only when one party would object, and we've never objected to people that haven't turned in there. And then there was some leftover stuff that they wanted. I guess they didn't understand the operating manual. You know, Bert's wasn't at the meeting. And Bert understands it perfectly. And Phil and I took the opportunity, the changes that they want wouldn't work. They weren't, that's not how we order water, that's not how Robert works. And that's not how we do the accounting. And we took their request and told them we wouldn't accept those, but we articulated in more detail the process that goes on. I don't think it was necessary, because we all, before it known that details, those processes, and you don't want to get into too much detail in a accounting manual, because, you know, there's always exceptions, and we see that all the time.
It's
But
restrictive.
having said that, and the other thing was they wanted titles to some of the paragraphs, and you guys all understand that from a legal perspective, the titles have no impact. They're convenience, but we put them on there. So we added start of primary irrigation season as a title. We didn't have a title to that before. Diversion discontinued by one district. We didn't have a title there, but it talks about it. And river pumping, which that paragraph is, I've got to fix that paragraph. River pumping in New Mexico, and that was a new paragraph that EPCWID did submit. I'm not sure I just got this from Phil. I'm not sure why he deleted that sentence, but I'll explain that to you what it is. This is good for us, and EPCWID offered it up. We talked to him about it. This comes from Chewy, actually, for many years of Chewy discussing this with Gary, is that when we're the only ones on the river and we find somebody in New Mexico, whether they're an EPCWID or not, pumping our water, then we can estimate how much they've taken and charged against EPCWID's allocation. So that's a big deal. So that the whole gain problem and some other ones, I mean, EPCWD's standing up, like we want the state engineer to do, standing up and taking responsibility for it. Because I think our argument was if we ever catch anybody pumping water that's not authorized in Texas, we go in and take their pump and put it in the yard and call the sheriff, right? And we said, we want you guys to do that too, to enforce it. We did,
Pick up those pumps that Hogan's got up there.
could be a little hard,
Not
they
a
might get in trouble
not a
with
2-inch pump.
Yeah, those are 16-inch pumps, but, and there's some history there. They can't do that because he's got a court order from the state of New Mexico saying he can have those pumps. We did send, several years ago, we sent the Reclamation did send the federal marshals up there. So that particular one's a federal issue, and they it's on our list of things for those federal government.
We just need to get it in Montalvo's court.
Yeah. Anyway, so the good thing about it is now we've added a procedure to at least account for it, for the pumping, so that's good.
No Kenny Teal Willfield? Is that kind of calmed down again?
Well, as I think we discussed that when you guys approved the resolution on the Canfield well field in December, was it? I can't remember.
What I mean is it's all, everybody's happy.
Oh, no, it just depends who you talk to. I mean, EPCWID's fine.
Yeah.
They are, okay. Well, that's
And
what
some of their board members, they may not be, but their president and everybody else, you guys, because of the litigation, we have not incorporated the second phase of the Canfield wellfield adjustments into the manual, and we won't incorporate them into the manual until we get resolution of the litigation. But we do it on an ad hoc basis, year by year, with the condition right now for you guys to approve it. You've already approved it for last year, is that I think it was the December.
We thought we took care of that in the 2001
The
contract.
2001 contract took care of the depletions on the main stem of the Rio Grande, because in Texas law, under the Constitution, you're prohibited from taking underflow of the river if it's allocated. Of course, the river's allocated under Texas adjudication. So the city at the time of negotiation in 2001 agreed to pay for that. The Texas law is silent to some degree on intercepting return flows, which are the drains.
Not raised.
Well, they're flowing this year, right, Rob? There's some water in the drain, 30 CFS, actually. In fact, surprisingly, we have that, almost all the drains are flowing.
Just sarcastic.
Yes, so, but in a drought, so the drain, the impact on the drains, we couldn't get that negotiated because we didn't have the legal authority that we have for the main stem of the river in the state of Texas. So what the district chose to do, and the city hasn't objected to it, is that if the city has residual allocation left over for the year, and they have so far every year, that is sufficient to offset that impact on the drains, then we charge that against, there's no money involved because there's no delivery, but because it's a groundwater interception or capture, we charge that water against the cities, and it gets charged as if it had been released or delivered to us. So we do that on a year-by-year basis. The decision to incorporate that in the manual was tabled, and at the rate things are going, 20 years? I don't know. We don't know. We'll talk about that at closed session.
Right. And now, just to be clear, the Bureau is also on board, as is EPID, in terms of postponing inclusion of that accounting into.
The Bureau doesn't have any say in it, and we haven't included them in any of that. That's an internal, that's a district to district.
I understood, but there has been,
To the
you've
manual.
had no conversations with the Bureau on that.
Well, we have had conversations, and I think they ended up, which we don't understand, ended up in, and that was some of the friction that was caused with early on by the Albuquerque office, is that the two districts decided that we weren't going to have any more discussions with them about where the two
They don't
districts.
On that, okay, I thought we had.
Well, don't read them that, because, you know, the board.
I would
in
think
general-
they'd be in agreement with it, I think it's.
Well, that was my, I thought they had been more explicitly in agreement, that was.
No,
Okay.
they were disruptive in there. So the districts, in fact, you look on the memorandums, it'll say district members of the allocation committee. They wouldn't sign off on it.
Okay, I thought they had come around.
And we don't do that through the operating manual, and we don't do it, we do it through our allocation charges. It's you guys decide what the allocation charges are.
Through that contract, basically.
And they approve the allocation charges, so
Mhm.
implicitly,
Yeah, okay.
they somehow.
And the only reason I ask you again, because you have to keep telling me over and over, kind of like Mary does on the financial,
Yeah.
because I know the board in general is acceptable of it, but I keep running into, remember I spent last week up in Las Cruces, and I keep running into board members, they keep throwing that in my face every time I meet them, I keep telling them just what you said. I said, "No,
It's,
we get together and it's worked out." But
You know.
that explanation about, yeah, it's not in the manual because we're waiting to see what happens.
Well, even if you put it in the manual, you're gonna run into that thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's all emotional.
yeah, those are.
And everyone carries it, including their latest brand new guy.
Yeah.
That
Well, they
was
built
his
it up
first thing. They built it up into this
to
huge
think,
mountain.
to make people think that it's something huge, and it's not.
Well, it's when it's the only horse that they have to ride,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
don't want to give it up, even though, but we have been, for several years, we have fully compensated for all depletions caused by the
Right.
Greenfield well put on the river and on the drainage system. And that's been great. I mean, and our offer, our initial offer was that the state of New Mexico would compensate us just for the amount of water that was on the main stem of the Rio Grande. We might consider that as being a very positive move. They won't even do that, let alone on the drainage system.
Right.
The main stem is a larger effect than the drainage system. And as Johnny pointed out, during drought, when the drains stop flowing, there's no effect. There's an effect on the amount of water stored in aquifer, but there's no effect on the flow in the Rio Grande, because there's no flow in the drains. So how can you take flow away if there's no flow?
All of this motion comes from the lawsuit the city about Paso filed against years ago. That started back when he was the chairman of the board there. And attorney, but,
There's also, you know,
can't even think of it. Anyway, doesn't matter.
yeah.
It was the lawsuit that caused all the problems and caused all the emotions and they will never.
Was it Ray Pearson?
Hmm?
When Ray Pearson was?
Right person.
Ray Pearson.
So we changed some headings, we changed some dates, and the last one was, and Robert was there at the meeting, so this is where they didn't understand how allocation charges occur, is that there was a issue that I got criticized for not having our allocation charges turned in on time, but they didn't understand that I cannot do the district's allocation charges, especially at the beginning and the end of the season, until Reclamation provides me with the amount of water released for Caballo and the amount of water delivered to Mexico. Because the way the allocation charges work is that I have to look at how much we divert versus how much is released, minus how much goes to Mexico. And the manual says this, and the agreement says this, and we pay the larger of the two. So if there are good return flows, like there was this year, we pay for the return flow and the water release. If in years when there is poor return flow and we have losses, we pay for the losses and the release, whichever's the bigger number. We agreed to that. And then at the beginning of the year, there's a similar type, a slightly different type calculation. So we're in a holding pattern. Robert gets his stuff turned in. He turned it into me on time. I couldn't turn it in. I sent out, how many emails? 5? Requesting the data. Then I got, how would you call it? You guys weren't at the meeting. I got criticized, is a nice way to say it, for not having our reports in at the time they wanted them. And so we went back and clarified that they have to turn their reports into me first, and then I have 7 days to turn my reports in. If they don't turn their reports into me, then we don't have to turn our reports in, and that's what happened this year. They had never turned their reports in. So that's it. So Phil and I took advantage of their request to clarify this, to put that in the. We never had to do that before, by the way, guys. So this is all new. And when we do this procedure, we never had to put that type of language in the manual, so now it's in there. So we'll see if
Give you more time to turn in your report, give them more time to turn, and they'll still be late, and you'll still be late.
Well, it says,
You
okay.
just give them more opportunity to be late.
Right, what are you gonna do? If they don't do
Nothing,
it,
you can't do anything, so it's called bureaucracy.
Right, it's a bureaucracy, so we all worked that out before, and now we've got it specified, they have to turn it in on the 10th day of each month, and then if they turn it in on the 10th day of each month, then we have to turn ours back in by the 17th, which is not a problem. If they don't, then I turn ours in 7 days after they turn theirs in. So, it gives me a
Now,
week.
what's the structure? Now, I know that Bert's off on the sideline, and he sounds like not even invited all the time to these
I
meetings.
specifically request that he be there at the meeting because of his knowledge is valuable, because we discuss a lot of things that went on before. If they don't understand some of the reasons we're doing this, they say, well, you know, and Bert's a resource to me. It's like Bert, why did we do this?
They ought to embrace him coming to their meetings, the new people. All right, so who took Bert's place?
Yvette was there.
Yvette, okay, I think we met her, didn't we?
Yeah, she's very good. I think.
Actually, Michelle was the one that took over.
Well, on the allocation, but at the meeting, functioning as a
Yvette's pretty
manager.
knowledgeable.
Yeah, she's been here for,
And Dan Tiers? What
He
happened?
retired.
Wow, you just moved in.
Yes.
So he didn't understand it by the time he retired. He had no idea.
was a quick study.
And
He
they've got,
did, but I mean,
they've
he
got
can't
this
learn
new
it.
young guy that they moved in from Albuquerque to El Paso that supposedly they're training to take over for Bert.
What's his name?
I just met him one time, I don't know. License plates I can remember, names I can't.
Bug shots, no problem. Arrest IDs, no.
But he seemed like, you know, nice young man, but it's
It
gonna take him a
only
while.
takes about 30 years to figure this out.
Yeah, it'll take
Bert's
him a
been
while.
working with 30 years or
Yeah.
longer.
Longer, almost 50.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll give you guys a copy of a red line version of this, and try to get it to you in the next board, well, we will have it in the next board packet, so we'll discuss all this stuff again at the next board meeting. And if you have anybody has any problem with any of these things, once you get it, just call me, and, you know, at this point, it's just a recommendation, that's all I'm doing is making a recommendation for you guys to adopt.
Everybody's in agreement with it, so if we
I think we all
so if we have a problem with it, then you start the process all over again.
Phil didn't think there was gonna be a problem with his board, and
Well, most of these changes,
Changes.
there's no changes here for
Yeah.
us. Well, the one on the whole gain charges, there is.
You've had all the discussion, just bring it to us, if we have a question, we'll ask.
Okay.
We don't have to go through all this again.
Don't go through this again, so
Well,
that
don't need
updates
to. I
you.
mean, there are no changes.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, it's mostly administrative or clerical. sort of.
Yeah, really, the only one that's significant, everything else you guys already approved by other
Yeah.
resolutions, the only one that's significant is that eBay now, we're formalizing, and we haven't done that before, that they'll pay for any diversions into Mexico from the river during when they're not, they already pay for them when they're on, when they're delivering water, now they'll pay for them when they're off. So that's great, so if we can document that somebody's pumping,
and
then,
the reason they got on board is last year, I turned to Robert at our first meeting, and I said, okay, we're gonna release tomorrow, Robert, do you have the drone ready to fly? And they said, you have a drone? I said, yeah. I said, we're gonna fly it up and down the river.
we did.
That's the only way, you know,
That's the only way we can get to some
we
of
can
those
monitor
things.
some of those
Yeah, it's
places.
a lot easier and quicker, and it works right.
Yeah.
I never.
And by the way, we don't have a drone, we borrowed Al's.
But he's gonna make a budget request.
Well, it's out of commission, right?
No, it's all right, it's
Put
just,
gasoline
we couldn't
in.
find it, it got misplaced.
Yeah.
Don't miss the picture.
You landed at Hogane's
No,
place and ran
it was
over
in
that
a-
truck?
We have, it's sort of like one of those Indiana Jones things, we use a lot of, our survey equipment has the same case, and so we have a room full of those cases, and it somehow got put with where it was supposed to be, the survey equipment. And then I didn't recognize that, it was supposed to be in the back of the truck, is where we usually keep it.
And he was trying to get it out of one of our storerooms, and I said, we don't have it, you took
You
it.
know, we went through
No,
all
we
there, and
didn't.
then I finally went to where it was supposed to be, and there it was.
So,
So DJI is 3 or 4?
Yeah, it's a 4, it's a 3 plus, but, you know, it's really, they get out of date so fast, so that, Trudy said we'd consider in the next budget cycle that the district would buy ones, but I won't miss
Why?
that.
You have
Well,
one.
the new ones,
Now, I thought you were gonna talk about your budget cycle.
The new ones, the new ones,
At
I don't think,
GPS.
I got one.
We don't need it either, we got one.
Yeah, they all have a lot of capabilities, but the new ones will fly longer, faster, and higher. And we're mainly what we're trying to.
Those things run.
Well, not too much, just a good, like the one that I use, not a survey grade one, is about $1,200 for a high-end one. For the one that we want, I know you guys may not approve it, but it actually measures, it does LiDAR, it's got LiDAR built in. Most of the money's for the LiDAR, the survey instrument that goes in it, not for the drone. The drone's about $2,000, the survey instrument's $10,000. But what it does is it'll measure cross sections, you know, it measures, Miguel knows, it's a light, laser, radar, or I don't know what LiDAR stands for. And, you know, it goes and it measures the depth, so we can, and the main reason for that isn't for the water theft issue, but it's for the sedimentation problems in the river, so we can survey them.
You don't need a drone to see those, you can drive down the road and see those.
You can pretty much just take a yardstick and see that stuff, but, you know, this idea would be that we could quantify the amount of yards that need to be removed in a location.
and surprisingly, there's several farmers that have the drones now. They,
I have a
when
son.
they irrigate,
It's the way to do
they
it.
fly over.
I got a son.
Well, we get rid of the crane and we just get you the drone.
I do it for 2 reasons. I'm old school. I buy for the ag, the farm has one small one, and we do it for finding gophers and fire ants, or and red ants. So I know what's eating my alfalfa.
You can see problems in your field.
Yeah, you see the big circles, you go like, well, that's called ant blight, right? And it's surprising how much, living out in the desert, how much ant blight we have. But at least, then you're not driving around forever, you just go right to the spots.
Well, if you feed them well with alfalfa, there'll be a lot more.
So that's the problem right there. If we quit growing alfalfa, there wouldn't be any, so.
All right.
Moving moving on to better stuff, compacted county, we didn't get the engineer's report, I guess our meeting as we talk. We still don't get invited to those meetings, we discussed that yesterday. Project Watch Fly, we did get a new allocation yesterday, 309.
309,000.
So I'm recommending, based on that, there's no, and also Mexico is going on one day after we go on, so we'll pay for 1 day of releases. I think it's still very doable with our allocation. It's almost, I guess there's a holiday in Mexico.
Benito Juarez on Monday.
Yeah, so. Anyways,
There's a holiday in Mexico every Monday.
Anyways,
Or something. They got more holidays than anything.
that, we had planned to both go on at the same time, which would have saved us a little water, but they didn't, so but I think just in terms of the efficiency of the whole operation, it's already established, and it would be very disruptive to change. So Robert, I think you support us going in and diverting a day before Mexico. Right?
Yeah.
So that's about a 4,000 acre foot release charge. The net difference, we'll probably take in that day about 1,500, so the net is about 2,500. It's sort of the price.
And you needed to get started.
Get started, so we'll do that. That helps out EBAD a little bit too. And then 4 feet, right? We need to go to 4 feet, and we need to go on the 2001 contracts to 28,000.
You're recommending today we up to 4 foot.
Yes. And that she's got the standard resolutions you do for the water allocations.
Do I hear a motion that we adopt our standard resolution?
Jim's fair approves.
An increase from 3.5 to 4.
Right.
Yeah. For the increase in allotment from 3.5 to 4.
And the 2001 contract.
Yeah, the 2001 amount of the water allocated to the city in the 2001 allocation, or contract needs to be increased to
Full allocation.
full allocation.
Which is, I'll get you the exact numbers, 28,000 and some small amount.
I'll second that motion.
And
Who made it? Larry?
one more thing before you go, increasing the small tracts from 8 to 10 irrigations.
Thank you.
Want to throw that in there too?
Yes.
Sure.
We're gonna increase the small tract from 8 to 10, also part of the resolution. So are you there? You second? Or you second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign.
Finally.
Robert finally had
4
her first
foot.
time
Yay.
in 5, 6, 8 years.
I tell you, it's funny, Daddy.
All right. What else, Al?
Status of third-party construction, the big projects are completed. District projects, Pete's gonna talk to you about. But mine, there have been, TxDOT, they opened the road back up, right, Larry?
Yes.
Yeah, I finally did. You know what, too, I went across that bridge yesterday, and it's real neat. Trump doesn't have to build that fence over there, they can just borrow the railings they put on that bridge along the river. My gosh, what a setup. They got huge pedestrian.
Nobody jumps, commits suicide off of it.
Yeah, like, you can't go around the ends and kill yourself, you can't. It's an overdone deal.
I think the best you could hope for is a broken leg, right?
And I asked Pete Monday to oversee the Wasteway 2 and make sure that Robert was looking out for American Canal, making sure that those projects were ready to go. And Pete, I think you'll give a report on removing the tapancos and all?
Yes.
All right.
And Franklin Canal heading is completed, they're backfilling right now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Pete.
All right, I'm gonna take a short restroom break.
Okay.
Is that all right with the rest of
Pretty
y'all?
good. Yeah, second that motion.
We're gonna take a break.
Take a break.
Oh, okay, but he was.
Yeah.
Recording.